What's going on, guys? It's Mr. DEBT Joe Lorick from the Money Etiquette Group, here to break down the new USMCA agreement. I'm talking about the trade agreement between the United States, Mexico, and Canada. This replaces NAFTA, which has been heavily criticized for not being fair and taking jobs away from the United States. So here's a quick breakdown of the new agreement. According to the new agreement, once ratified and approved, it's going to be much easier and much less expensive to trade between Canada, Mexico, and the United States, particularly when it comes to agriculture, especially when it comes to dairy products. Before, there were certain levels in branding on dairy products in in Canada, which made it difficult for the United States to send milk or dairy products to Mexico. It was kind of an undercutting strategy where if they labeled milk here of a certain level, that means it couldn't sell in Canada for the same amount, and it kind of undercut the market when it came to pricing. Well, that's being removed, and it's going to be easier now to trade dairy from the United States to Canada. In exchange for that, Canada, it's going to be easier for them to send poultry, to send turkey, chicken, and I believe also eggs to the United States. So now when it comes to food distribution, when it comes to our restaurants and where they get their food from, even our grocery stores, we could have more poultry and eggs that come from Canada because it's easier now. We've removed some restrictions in this agreement. So I'm not saying that, go celebrate and get your Canadian bacon. I'm just saying that there's going to be more food, particularly dealing with poultry, dealing with chicken and turkey, and dealing with eggs that will be sent to the United States. Also in Mexico, it's going to be easier to sell American cheese in Mexico. A lot of people may not be aware of this issue, but because of labeling restrictions, it was kind of difficult to sell American cheese in Mexico. You had to label it a certain way to make it work. Well, those restrictions have been removed, so it's going to be easier to sell American cheese in Mexico. I don't know if they want our cheese. I don't know if it's a big deal, but when it comes to business and it comes to craft and all these people who sell cheese, well, it's going to be easier to send your American cheese to Mexico. Now, another important point that comes with this trade agreement is that trade between the United States, Mexico, and Canada, when it comes to agricultural trade, will not have to meet WTO safeguards. So right now, World Trade Organization safeguards do not have to be followed as long as that trade takes place between Canada, Mexico, and the United States. Previously, there were 3 different entities in trade, but now it's almost like we're just one entity. So it's almost like we're trading within country. So instead of having to follow those guidelines for trading between each other, we no longer have to do that. It's becoming more like you're one country, even though you are 3 separate countries. There's also a lot of notes about increased transparency when it comes to pricing, when it comes to tariffs and new rules and regulations that come out. We're going to be more transparent with each other between Mexico and Canada. Because we were competing with each other, we weren't kind of revealing everything when it came to ingredients, when it came to certain standards. We weren't really being fair and open about why the standards are the way they are. But now that's going to be more transparent. People are going to be more open about what they're doing, especially when it comes to ingredients and foods. But here's something that really may disturb a lot of people, especially those who, when it comes to the quality of their food, when it comes to eating organically. This bit of news in the agreement might make you feel some type of way. It might cause some worry. It's that the United States, in exchange for this new agreement, when it comes to more transparency, lower tariffs or zero tariffs on agricultural trade, when it comes down to it, what the United States has agreed to do is share agricultural biotechnology information with Mexico and Canada. And if you know anything about biotech when it comes to the agricultural field, you understand that we're talking about now genetic altering practices. We're talking about changing things. We're talking about cloning. We're talking about, breeding different animals and making sure that you do so with different splices of DNA. We're talking about playing with DNA. We're going to share that information with Mexico and Canada. So if you felt like, well, maybe food from Mexico was a little bit better in terms of being organic, or food from Canada, if you were a person that said, yeah, if I get it from Canada, it's organic. They don't put the same things into their animals. They don't genetically engineer their animals and their livestock. Well, that technology is now going to Mexico and going to Canada. So, of course, some people won't feel any type of way about that. Some people will feel like, whatever, who cares? They were already, cloning animals over there. We just didn't know it. They were genetically modifying the food there before. Well, now it's out in the open and it's going to be done. And you can't say you're going to get your organic food from Mexico or Canada, because they're going to start using practices that the United States use. And I want to know how you guys feel about that aspect. Understand, yeah, it sounds good that we can exchange milk for cheaper, and cheese is going to be easier. And one thing I didn't add, also alcohol. There were restrictions when it came to trading and exchanging alcohol between Mexico and the United States, and also between Canada and the United States. And there are a lot of labeling restrictions that have been removed. Like, there were some restrictions when it came to labeling, when it came to being designated as a distinctive drink or distinctive alcohol beverage. Those things were kind of all over the place. And now they've said that some of those restrictions and some of those things that were called distinctive will no longer be called distinctive. Some alcohol beverages that will remain under the distinctive labeling will be bourbon whiskey, tequila, Tennessee whiskey, mezcal, and Canadian whiskey. So these particular whiskeys, for the most part, and of course, you have tequila and whatever, these particular whiskeys will remain as a distinctive alcoholic beverage, while others will not be distinctive, which will make it easier to trade. And because you don't have to label it a certain way, you can, more easily sell alcohol between Mexico, Canada, and the United States. You can bring in more Mexican alcohol and Canadian alcohol into the United States. But also that means that United States alcohol makers could also distribute more of their alcohol to Canada and Mexico without having to label it in a certain way, which restricted trade. But nevertheless, I want to know what you guys really feel about all these things, but specifically, I want to know what you feel about us sharing biotech when it comes to agriculture, that information with Canada and Mexico. Do you feel like it's going to create a world where in the United States, particularly in North America, we have less organic food available to us? Because now we're kind of polluting the food, animals, in those countries, if they adopt it. Now, just because you give information, it doesn't mean that they're going to use it. But if this had to be a part of the agreement, it seems like that's something that Mexico and Canada wanted. Maybe they wanted it because if you're able to honestly alter some of your food genetically, you can produce more food, which can feed more people. So they feel like we can eliminate more poverty by having that technology. But the side effects, the cancers, the things that come with that, who knows? But I want to know, again, what you guys think in the comment section. And I really want to know your opinion on this matter. So whatever it is, whether you're for it, whether you're against it, leave it if you think it's going to lead to more jobs, because we're not being undercut by Mexico by eliminating certain tariffs, but by eliminating certain label restrictions, by just making trade easier, especially when it comes to agriculture, and having no tariffs, if that's going to help. Also, when it comes to manufacturing, we have to be more clear in what's manufactured where, especially when it comes to automobiles. So we'll see where this goes. But how do you feel just knowing those details? How do you feel about this agreement? Do you feel like we're becoming one country, even though we're three separate countries? We're moving more towards a one world nation instead of, moving further apart, even despite, a wall being built at our southern borders. Or do you feel like, this just aligns things better for trade? It's going to be better for business. We won't have Mexico and Canada undercutting us in certain fields. That means more jobs will stay here. And when it comes to how much they pay, we even have restrictions in the agreement about pay, saying that, okay, when you produce this certain material or these foods or these beverages, that workers will be paid at least $15 an hour, $16 an hour. Otherwise, we're not going to import and export between each other. So it's saying that you're getting rid of the idea that you can produce for cheaper in Mexico or Canada based on being able to pay a lower wage. That was something I know the Democratic Party really pushed for, and that is a part of the agreement too, which should help in theory, keep some jobs here. I don't know how many jobs we've lost because of the wage discrepancies with both countries, but we'll see. But nevertheless, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I appreciate your support. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We talk about everything with the economy, finances. We talk about IPO stocks. We talk about financial literacy. Everything regarding finances and financial freedom we talk about on this channel. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I appreciate your support.